Old Boys Assembly, and then on Saturday we've got a full day of fun and on competing against St. Benedict's, rugby, hockey, everything. And afterwards, everyone is invited to join us here at the Maristonian. And just to point out, I don't know if you guys have noticed our legacy beam up here. On the other side, you'll see all the plaques. If you'd like to purchase a plaque and have your name up there, you're more than welcome. You can come to chat to one of us afterwards. Okay, so without too much more, let's jump into the program for this evening. If we can all just bow our heads in prayer. Loving and eternal God, we gather today as the Marist Old Boys at St. David's Marist in Nanda, grateful for the bonds of friendship, shared values, and the legacy of our Marist education. We ask your blessing on this annual general meeting, that it may be guided by wisdom, unity, and a spirit of service. Inspire our discussions, decisions, and actions to reflect the Marist ethos of humility, simplicity, and modesty. May we honor the past, embrace the present, and work together for a future that uplifts our community and those we serve. We place this meeting in your hands, trusting your grace to lead us. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay. Just apologies for the evening. As I said, we had a lot of RSVPs and a lot of them that wanted to attend, but we have a few that couldn't make it in the end. So apologies from Ken Smith, Mark Nowak, Ronnie van der Hof, Anton Owidi, Ethan Leather, Josh Jacobs, Ben Faree, Connor Barnett, Alessandra Nauman, and Pat Noble. And welcome to everyone else who is here. Okay, here we go. Mike?
I'm hoping you can hear me without a mic, because it makes it a little bit easier. And I'm a fine one to talk, because wearing a hearing aid, I always say, why don't they use a mic? Why don't they actually just get on with it? But so I'm going to try. You don't need it for the streaming, I'm presuming. It can go through. Thank you. I'm sort of bold on the thing as a school report. And some of your parents, quite a lot of your parents actually, many of your past parents as well, but even if you're not, I think many of you have a sense of what's going on and what has been going on at St. David's for the last while. So I am here to tell you that at the moment I think your school is in a good space. It certainly is the biggest it's ever been. There are now over 1,400 boys that put on the St. David's uniform each day. Not all on this campus, as you know. The Alexandra campus was opened 3 years ago, and we've got just over 100 boys there. But there are over 1,300 boys on the Sandton campus as well. And I mean, enrollment is one thing, and it's important because it does give us all sorts of things. It gives us the opportunity to make sure that a Marist education is spread to as many people as could possibly want it. And we know the value of what you can get here at St. David's as well. But perhaps more importantly is that the enrollment also tells us that across our two campuses, what we are aiming to do is take that strength of that Marist education, those values and those things that some of you will still remember the odd thing about from when the brothers used to stand up on the second floor and tell you what's going on at your assemblies, right through to those that perhaps are more recent as well. And last weekend we hosted the 2015 matric group for their 10-year reunion. And I was just saying to somebody, all the time that they were here, and they were my second matric group, I battled with them because they were late for everything and they weren't particularly whatever. And I said, now you guys are a week early for the Old Boys Day. And hopefully all those seeds we planted have started sprouting, and you have learned those types of things. But certainly, just in terms of the school, we had possibly our best matric results ever, certainly for the last 20 years in the matric class of last year. And I'm very, I think both Nick and I know that this goes in waves. And you can't necessarily say it's a complete upward trajectory all the time, because this year's matric group is doing well, but has some work to do. So it does go up and down. But I think what I do want to say is, irrespective of what a particular cohort might be doing, the academic route and path and rigor and excellence has been a really, really good sign of where St David's is going, and it's important because to get into university, no matter where you want to go to university, whether it's in South Africa or overseas, is no longer as simple as perhaps it was 30 years ago. I certainly wouldn't get into matric or into university on my matric results, and hopefully I'd get better ones nowadays, but we certainly work hard on that. We also have a very strong sporting program across multiple sports as well. We've had one of our best seasons ever. We reached the final of the National Cricket Tournament, which I think is the first time we've ever done that. And sadly, we lost to Bishops in that final, but certainly to get to that point is the result of some consistent and sustained work in our cricketing program, and that's echoed in other sporting areas as well. Basketball's in the top 3 at the moment. Our football team remains right up there as well. We won 2 national water polo tournaments this year. So I think all of those things talk to where we're going and where we've been coming from with our sporting program. And I just want to briefly touch on that because you're going to be treated to some thoughts and some ideas from Dave Nosworthy, who's our Director of Sporting Performance. And the concept of physical development is as important in the days that we're living in now as the academic rigor and as the character development and all the other developments might be as well. So we are doing quite a lot of work there for all of them. But on the cultural front as well, for those of you that found that was your real passion area, it has also grown. Almost 300 boys on this campus take an individual musical instrument lesson each week. I mean, that's an exceptionally large number, and it translates into some remarkable performances. Last night we were at Kingsmead for the ensemble, and we sat there and we were delighted. We had about 30 to 35 boys in the concert band playing in that particular thing. So there's been a cultural explosion in so many areas. And I think that comes back to the other things we try and teach, which is balance in life and, of course, character. And character being the most critical of all the things that we try to teach and try to plant the seeds. So many people say to me, your boys have to be this and your boys have to be that. So I'm just going to remind you tonight, schools are not places of perfection. They're not places for your boys to be perfect. They're actually places for your boys to try things. They are places where they're going to make mistakes and where we're going to push them into uncomfortable situations so that they can make those mistakes. Because if we don't do that, then we're not laying the foundations that I think many of you will have seen have been the success of your own adult lives, in that you've reached in when the times are tough and you found something. Sometimes, if you reflect on it, you will know that some of those seeds came out of what you experienced here, what you were encouraged to do here, and what you took into your adult lives from St David's. So certainly we'll keep doing that, and we've been doing it, as you know, at St David's for 84 years. So next year's the 85th year, which brings me to the last part that I want to talk about tonight, and that is around the fact that in 15 years' time, the school will be entering its centenary year. And centenaries are an interesting thing. People sort of hold them up as this big, amazing thing that we all need to reach. And they are important because they allow for reflection. And a triple figure 100 is quite an achievement for anybody. But when you are 84, you also are quite old and already have quite a lot of that. And between 84 and 100 is usually the time that people really start struggling. So in my mind, our aim is to turn the school around, is to make sure that actually it's the time when we start thriving even more than we have been of late and over the last year. So we are about to launch something called the Centenary Legacy Campaign. And I'm sharing it with you because the All Boys will be a critical part of what the Centenary Legacy Campaign is all about. And it is really about looking at our school, about the gratitude that we need to put in place for the last 100 years, for what it's given all of us. But more importantly, it's about the legacy that we are all leaving for the next 100. And that's really important. I will not be here at the centenary. Well, I might be here. I hope I'm here. But no, I certainly won't be earning a salary from St David's by then. But for me, I want to be quite sure that as we leave, everything we do is setting this school up so that your sons in some cases, but your grandsons in other cases, will be actually able to benefit from an absolutely world-class school, which I believe we already are, but which we need to keep working on. And I want to talk just a little bit about just one of the programs and one of the projects that we're doing, and I see they put it up as well. And it talks to what I was saying, and I'm not focusing on sport tonight because that's the only thing we focus on. I'm just focusing on it as an example for you and as something that we're doing. The Sports Performance Centre, and if we go to the next slide, don't know if somebody is controlling it over there, great, and perhaps to the third one as well. And I want you just to have a look at that picture. So that picture scares me. It scares me because if any of you have ever built anything in the last year or two, you know what every brick costs in something. But just so that you know where that is, this is on the bank of Lavala, on that end over there where the school starts and the pool's beyond it, etc. This particular building over here is not even there yet. It's being built at the moment. You'll know that boarding was started in 2018. It has grown quite significantly and the demand for it has grown. We have one main house and we have 3 annexes at the moment, smaller houses around the campus. So we're building a second boarding house at the moment, 42-bed boarding house, that is part of it, and it goes beyond it. And this is the existing boarding house over here. So you can get a sense of where it is. But this is a project which really is a game changer for us in the physical development side of where we're going. It is a project which forms part of the Legacy campaign because it is looking at sport and what's needed in sport, but it's also looking at boarding and that development as well, because on top of this building is a dining hall. So this is the dining hall that goes all the way along there, and underneath that is a sporting performance centre, which in the old days we used to call a gym. And the gym is, certainly if you look at the St David's gym at the moment, I mean, we've worked quite hard on it, so the equipment has been upgraded, all of that type of thing, but it is just too small for the numbers that we're looking at, and we need to develop quite quickly. So in the sporting performance focus, just like we're doing in the cultural focus where we're looking at other developments, at performing venues and things like that are needed there to cater for those 280 boys, just like boarding, where we will go over 100 boarders next year for the first time. And just like the academic space, where we are looking at the refurbishment of the North Wing, which is the old prep block on the main quad. If you're standing in the quad looking this way towards the car park. Just on the top of that, we aim to put in a world-class science centre, because the science centre that was there was built before, I think, almost all of you came to St David's. And yet we're achieving remarkable results in it, but to go even further, to lift even higher, to take that next step up, we need to develop all of those facilities. So the Sporting Performance Centre includes the gym, which is where the steps are, but we also need to look at how you fund these types of things. And we also realize that you can only sell so many cupcakes or so many ice creams. And if you want to build a facility like this, you need to look at philanthropy and donations in a completely different way. You also need to look at other ways of raising funds. So we're working with a consortium. And just beyond the gym part, that next little bit over there, you can see the indoor cricket facility. That's actually also an indoor facility for all sorts of sports. Where we can take a full group inside. You just roll back the nets and you've got a complete inside venue for practice as well. And above that is where the consortium comes in, where we're looking at the sporting performance and working with a group of medical and of doctors, of physios. And the reason we're doing this is because you've got to find different ways to fund it. Gents, I have to tell you, this facility, the first part of the facility is a 74 million rand facility. The second part is a 15 million rand facility. The third part is another 50-something million. So that's a significant investment. It's a game-changing investment. So we need to do all sorts of things. our job is part of the funding for the gym. The consortium is working on two of the other components, and we hope that we will be able to move this along quite quickly. And we do need people to open doors to people who've got that type of money, and there are people. There are old boys, there are parents that have that type of money to certainly assist, and we hope that we will get there, and we'll certainly keep working from it. Many people say to me that's almost impossible, and I'm saying it's not. When we were thinking about boarding, which was about 10 years ago, 9 years ago, we also wondered where we would be able to afford it. At the conclusion of the new build, we'll have spent close to 100 million rand on boarding, on getting it in place. So we can get there, and we will get there. When we were thinking about opening the Alex campus, and that's taken 11, 12 years, we opened it in 2023, it was almost impossible to think, where would we find money to actually open another campus, to get it going to the point where we can have, to date, 100 boys in it, and beyond. It'll go to about 200, 250 boys eventually. I mean, where can you, everything starts small. Everything has to be there. So we're starting this. So any of you who do want to talk to me about it, I'm absolutely available to do so, in whatever form you'd like to. But I do want to just show you that's where it is. On top of it is the dining hall. The dining hall is being designed actually not for 100, 120 boarders, which is what we will have capacity for next year. It's being designed for 220 boarders, ultimately. And it will be used, obviously, for other functions as well. It'll take the boarders out of the Maristonian, which makes this more available than it has been, perhaps not only for old boys, but for the whole community to gather and use and hopefully develop. So that is another plus of where that's going as well. But certainly, if you look here, you can see this is the ground floor, and that's the indoor centre I was talking to you about with the nets that go back, and then there's the medical side of it. There's a pool development there, all of those types of things. There was another thing on the previous slide, but I think just keep going forward, Lara, if you can. You'll see accommodation over there. That's another part of what we're doing. We are also completely aware that we need to actually open our doors wider. And I was speaking to somebody just now when they said, are the brothers allowing you to name things? Yes, absolutely they are. I think they've realized the world has changed. And, you know, where people put down that type of money, we'll certainly be looking at that type of thing, not only in this development, but in the science block as well, where, you know, where a science lab will cost X and can be named, etc. So we are working a little bit on that. But one of the things we are working with as well is with one of the IPL cricket franchises who obviously work out of Joburg a lot and are looking for a top-class facility to use. So I don't know whether that will work. I have no idea. But we've already had 2 meetings with them, so they're not disinterested. And who knows? You know, they've got the money that certainly makes my eyes water. So if we can get and tap into that type of thing, we'll go forward. So it's about belief. It's about actually saying we are going to spend the next 15 years at St David's Maristonian developing our campus, developing our school offering in a way that's going to benefit the boys that are here. Absolutely, but it's going to benefit the boys that are coming for the next 100 years after that centenary. So just quickly, if we go through the last file or two, just give you a couple of other perspectives of what it might look like. And I think that might be the last one, is it, Laura? Or is there one more? Okay. So this is the new boarding house, just to give you perspective. So if you walk all the way up here, you'll get to the chapel. So this, from the chapel looking straight down into, and this is the walkway that will go down, because in time there will be another 2 boarding houses below it, feeding into the dining room area. This is not final design, obviously, but it gives us a sense we needed to get to that figure, so we needed to understand what it would cost. Right, so I'm going to leave that there, and that's, you're the first people that we're actually talking publicly about this particular facility to. It hasn't even been launched into our parent space yet, but it will be fairly soon. The coming soon is just a hint as well, so we can get there. So I really, really do encourage you. You know, many of you have had your sons here, which means that hopefully your grandsons will be here too. And many, many of you have committed to the school in so many ways. We are delighted with the involvement of the old boys, the increasing involvement. We see old boys who come back and want internships here. We see old boys who come back and teach here, which is always a delight for me. We see old boys on our committees and supporting the school in its development and growth. We see old boys starting programs like the mentoring program that is going to be shared again with the boys tomorrow in the Old Boys Assembly, I hope, a little bit. But we have old boys on our board, we have old boys on our foundation, leading our foundation. And those are important spaces and places to be, because you fully understand what St. David's is all about, and you can bring that back to the boys. So thank you for listening to me now. This is a school of impact. It is a school of significance, and it will continue to grow to be even more so. But most importantly, I think, it's a school of hope. And for all of us, living in the fraught world we're living in at the moment, hope is one of those things that we need to engender in people. We need to build in. We need to actually allow our boys to learn that it's not all negative. I have the great privilege every day of working with tomorrow and working with the boys that are going out to be out tomorrow. And the future's in good hands. It really, really is. We need to make sure that our facilities and our programs continue to do that as well. So thank you very much. And I'm happy to chat to anybody just now if you have specific questions as well. So thank you very much.
Excellent, thanks. How's it, gents? We've tried to sort of reimagine sort of the AGM as opposed to sort of bring it up to the modern age. So we've tried to keep it as informal as possible. Obviously, that's only capable to do that to a certain extent. So much so that I printed up my notes here and I haven't practiced my speech. But we're going to wing it a bit and have it more as a casual chat than anything else. So first up, this is my first AGM as a chairman. So I just wanted to have a big thank you to the school executive for supporting me over the last year, especially to Lara. She's really been sort of exceptional in the last sort of few months. I'm going to equally say thank you to Joe, who's not here. He left us and sort of went to his old school, Parktown Boys. But Joe had a serious amount of energy and really brought a lot to the table. We are excited to be welcoming back an old boy, Sav, who's going to be taking up Joe's role from 1 July in the same capacity. So that's going to be exciting. I was hoping he was going to get cracking earlier, but obviously he has got commitments. To the foundation, to Fiona, thank you very much. You sit quietly and support us, and thank you very much for everything and coming to all the meetings, and your support is really greatly appreciated. Mike, this is incredible. I'm really feeling quite inspired about the school after seeing that. Obviously that's just focusing on sport, but sort of just hearing the way you talk about the school and where it's going, I think is really inspiring. So thank you very much for leading the school how you do. And Nick, equally so. I've got a boy in the prep, and many of us do, and sort of they all look up to you. And thank you for your leadership style in the prep school. It's really, really grateful for that. To my committee, we've obviously came out of, actually it feels like yesterday, but the COVID years, which was tough. Obviously had a change of guard in the committee as well, to an extent. Matt, my predecessor, did a phenomenal job. I was bitterly disappointed when he stood down as chairman, and kind of being vice chair, I realised, I think we suddenly don't have a role of vice chairman at the moment, and so maybe that's why. But Matt, I'm grateful that you're still on the committee with me, and sort of kind of fulfilling the role of treasurer and doing that brilliantly, and you're a great sounding board. And Dave sits as sort of our old boys rep on the board. And Dave, thanks for all of that. Dave's, constantly there. I think actually there's probably a few people who are at the school less often than you are, with kind of kids here and stuff. So it's been great. Yeah. Excellent. Just some sort of on our community and the engagements that we've had over the year. sort of a golf day at CCJ. Mike put that together, and another great success. These are sort of standout events, and for those of you who play golf and haven't played in a golf day, they are great days. I think this year is going to be slightly earlier, and probably September. I quite liked the December. It was like sort of the final day of work for me. Well, not really work, but it was, yeah, it's a great day, and we had an excellent time, actually. So, Mike, thanks again, and looking forward to this year's one. Is it going to be at CCJ, or what are you thinking at the moment?
Open to
suggestions.
But
okay.
That's a good fallback.
Okay, good, yeah, excellent. You guys may have seen, sort of, we started what we've talked about for a while is our first Thursdays. So, you know, we're going to keep a regular sort of social event on the first Thursdays of every month. You know, whether it's 3 guys or 30 guys, it's a reoccurring, you know, social event that's going to happen, and we, you know, one day it's going to be here. Once we actually build that thing, well, not that thing, but the sports facility, and we can really take ownership of the space. You know, we're hoping, we've got great plans for an old boys bar, is that it can be centered here. At the moment, we're sort of dotting around at different kind of bars, supporting some old boys. So we've been going to Mook Bar to support them, and that's a great venue, live music, and Rob Lang really puts out a good spread for us, so that's always good. And also we've been down the road at what's that place called? Hogshead. Yes, there we go. That was the first one. So those are good, and we'll keep sort of communicating on that. And speaking of communicating, hopefully you're all on the sort of new WhatsApp community. So if not, we've set up this community. You know, I think the days are gone of mass emails and getting sort of everything via that. So we'd rather sort of be a little bit more specific around our communications. So we've set up a community. Obviously, the major things like AGMs we'll put on the notification kind of channel, but then there's subgroups relating to, you know, if you're interested in hearing the sports results, or if there are, you know, business related breakfasts or something like that. So we've divided it up into kind of a number of sort of subgroups, and, you know, if you're interested in that thing, you can join that group. You're not going to hear about, it's a topic that you won't be interested in. Obviously, a lot of the conversation is around the sports results at the moment, but we also want that to be sort of a fairly organic place. So there's not rigid rules. And for example, let's say on a Sunday afternoon, guys want to come and play touch rugby, and say, actually, it's a great idea to have a touch rugby group on that. That's the type of, you know, communication platform that we wanted to use. So we're happy to take suggestions and let it grow as we see fit. The UK chapter, Kai is kind of doing great things with that. Kai, thanks very much for your efforts there. UK chapter 2 years ago, or maybe 2.5 years ago, was non-existent, and now it's a kind of flourishing group of guys getting together in London at sort of cool pubs, having a few pints. I think we had a Kalamazumba in Leadenhall Market, which is quite something. I mean, I spent a few years in London, and that was sort of an iconic area, so that was pretty awesome. And again, also, there's, without us sort of seeing it, we get a number of sort of groups from different years having their reunions. Obviously, was it 2005 are going to be having their reunion tomorrow night, is it? But yeah, earlier this year, or was it late last year, we had I think it was a 50-year reunion, I think it was. I mean, there's a handful of guys here. Obviously, the classes were much smaller then, but you had a bunch of passionate guys, and I came along to just hear some stories. And, school was a very different place for them back then. If you compare it to now, it is incredible how St. David's has grown and sort of where it's got to. Philanthropy and support. This is a big thing and often happens behind the scenes, and where we're able to now provide some support. So obviously not sharing names or anything like that, but we are supporting sort of old boys. One old boy who may have come across some tough times, we're assisting them and sort of just getting over sort of this herd kids. We do want to go slightly broader than that. Perhaps a good sign is that what we've found, sort of the Old Boys Bursary Fund has typically been set up to to bring and provide support to old boys who want to bring their kids here, but it isn't financially possible. I think maybe it's a good message that we don't find too many of these boys, that they're out there doing good things. So we want to start looking slightly broader than that and just doing good with the funds that we have. You know, obviously we'll always be linked to the school and the old boys, but maybe broaden the scope of what we're able to do in that space to a broader thing. We want to be able to start spending the money that we can make on small things. Andrew Kirkland has kind of set up, and it was infancy probably 18 months ago, a learnership program, and it's grown and grown and grown. And I think so much that Andrew's like, oh my gosh, what did I start? But it's a really good program. For those of you who are interested, please chat to Andrew. He's looking for sort of mentors, and there's lots of boys who really sort of seek guidance of someone who's, you know, sometimes not their parents and not their friend. You sit in that space in between of providing sometimes more real advice and a sort of unbiased advice, but also sort of help them along kind of the roads. Andrew, well done on that. Really is incredible work there. What we're sitting in here sort of, what's it, 3 years I think we now are, sort of feels like yesterday, and this thing was built in record time of felt like 2 months. But we're sitting here, and obviously the old boys, this was quite a big expense to put the funds on the table. Like any build, it slightly exceeded what we planned for. Not in terms of time, actually that was amazing, but in terms of cost. And so we were left with a fairly significant debt to the school, and thank you to the school for standing up and helping us out there. But we had an incredible anonymous donation by one of the old boys earlier this year, which basically cleared all our debt to the school. So to whoever that might be, if you're online or in the audience, you know, a real big thank you. What that has allowed us to do is now also sort of start contributing to the school. So there's a renovation and upgrade of the prep school pavilion at the moment. And you know, we're able to now say, listen, we can contribute that to the school, and that's it. So that's really a positive step in sort of asking for money. We're able to now sort of start providing the school with money. And we will sort of expand from that and sort of more initiatives, and we really hope to be part of, you know, all of this in a meaningful way. Where am I? Obviously, I mentioned I didn't practice this, and I sort of lost myself here. Okay, that's done. Looking ahead, so there's been some meaningful sort of progress made, specifically Joe, in terms of sort of what we were referring to as like membership for life. Over the years, we've had lots of chats about sort of, you know, should old boys pay a membership fee every year or every month? And, you know, I kind of feel it's like, well, you know, how can you be an old boy but not a member of the old boy sort of, you know, fairly much everyone who comes up with St. David's is an old boy. So, but that said, you know, we did notice that there's sort of probably a very good opportunity for us to raise some funds and sort of working with the school in terms of once the kids probably get to their sort of the end of the matric year, there'll be sort of a once-off cost that the boys will pay, and effectively that'll be a payment to the old boys that'll be sort of the membership for life. And so, you know, always welcome back as an old boy. So, yeah, there's a little bit of formalities that we still need to sort out on that, but otherwise, kind of, yeah, it's a really good initiative there. Red tape. Now, I suppose I'm the sort of type of person, I don't really like too many formal things, and kind of trying to get to an AGM and realizing that we have to send kind of notes 14 days in advance, and we need to have a quorum of 21 people, and this needs to be done and that needs to be done. And actually a lot of this bureaucracy and red tape is not unnecessary, but there's perhaps a lot of it. So we are going to undertake a project to look at our constitution, not to change the way it works, but to remove some unnecessary red tape, to sort of make it a little bit easier to get involved, and to sort of, you know, for us to work as a committee a lot easier. So much so that I actually couldn't get this as something I needed to sort of do in this meeting, because I had to give you more days' notice with the whole proposal on what was going to happen. So what we'll do is during the year we'll hold a special meeting. We'll send out sort of proposed amendments to the Constitution that we are looking to make, and then sort of have another one of these where we can sit around and chat about the merits of certain changes and what's required. But I do think sort of, we probably need to sort of take the Constitution a bit forward in terms of its ease of operating. Yeah, so please, if you would like to come along to that, it sounds like a fairly boring meeting. we'll welcome it. Yeah, exactly. There will be drinks. As you all know, this coming weekend is our Old Boys Day. It's a great day. Please come along and support the teams, obviously across both the rugby and the cricket. Hockey. Sorry. And then, obviously, I've been asked by the first team coach to say, listen, please, can we keep the behaviour? Obviously, I don't know if you heard, I think there's been an Old Boys Day of late where it really got out of hand, and I don't think that sort of shines a positive light on any school. So I think, let's stand up and have fun. Let's have a great day, but let's treat the opposition with respect, with the ref with respect. I give it to these refs who come out here on sort of a weekday to ref schoolboy rugby. They're going to get things wrong. Let's laugh about it and carry on, and then have a beer afterwards. So in closing, just saying this, we've had really good momentum over the last kind of year. Thanks again for the support. And we're really excited for what next. If anything to go by in terms of those images, the school's kind of really going to get taken to the next level. So thank you very much. Up next is Fiona. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, and good evening, gentlemen of Inanda. I'm going to be very quick. I'm just giving you some St. David's Marist Foundation feedback on your project funds that are held under the foundation. As Mike said, 84-year-old, people feeling a bit elderly, but we're still feeling quite young because we're 18 as the foundation, so we're sort of in matric at the moment. But 18 years ago, when the foundation was founded, the Old Boys Committee at that time made quite a wise decision to place some funds that they had under the Mobs Trust, which were shares, under the foundation as the start of the Old Boys Bursary Fund. And in time, that has been donated to over the years, also by many of you here. And 450,000 Rand in donations has been received to the Old Boys Bursary Fund over the years. And with it being held under the foundation with dividends and interest, that's currently on 1.2 million. So, it's a wise decision indeed. The Director of Cultural Affairs, Yaku Ferreira, actually said to me the other day, because the Cultural Development Fund is under the foundation as well, and they had funds they'd raised and they'd put it under the foundation. There's 24 funds under the foundation, and he came to check on where they were up to, and when he heard what they were on, he said, can I bring my pension fund to them as well? And then the other fund was the Maristonian Project Fund, which made this possible. So that was 1.5 million that went across to the school from all the donations, dividends, investments. Dividends and interest, thank you. So that fund has been wound down for now. So the existing fund that you have under the foundation is the Old Boys Bursary Fund. And as Andrew mentioned, there is a bursary being funded this year from the Old Boys, so thank you very much for that. And then I just wanted to share, as Mike had mentioned, that there's a big Old Boys presence on our Board of Trustees. There's a lovely symbiotic relationship with the Old Boys Committee as well. So we have 6 Old Boys who are foundation trustees. Our chair, Simon Denny, our vice chair, Tyson Sitole, then Batana Wundler, Connor McFadden, Jitesh Katawaru, he's our nearest trustee, and Daryl Keister, and then Sergio Marishin is our foundation accountant as well, and gives us tremendous support. So that is me in a nutshell, and thank you to you all. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My job is made infinitely easier by the work done before me, so you might hear a few repeats from earlier. Let me just take a side note very quickly to give my thanks to Andrew, who's taken upon himself the role of chairman with huge aplomb and huge amount of energy, and has taken us forward again, another big step from where we were. So my sincere thanks to you, Andrew. I'm going to be giving the financial report tonight, but in spirit of the format tonight, I'm not going to be taking you into the vast detail. If anybody does require any information, I'm very happy to share it. Rather, I'm going to talk tonight about the principles of what we as a committee are trying to achieve and how we are funding that financially. Firstly, a huge thanks to the foundation, and Fiona, thank you for all the hard work and everybody who supports the foundation as well. We rely on them significantly to manage those funds, and our hope is that we grow that fund, so that we're not supporting just one but multiple boys in whatever capacity we can. We closed off 2024 very positively financially. As Andrew mentioned, a significant pot of our funds was used to fund this beautiful building, but it goes to show that principally, as Mike said earlier, it takes just a really good idea and a little bit of time to grow those funds, and maybe it was a little longer than we thought, and maybe a little short of what we thought it was going to be. In fact, I think the original plans were very close to what that was. However, the cost then was significantly less, but still out of our reach. Nonetheless, we have funded a fantastic building, and as Treasurer, I'd like to support Mike's call that as and when we have initiatives, we ask the Old Boys community to find the value in that, because whatever we do is ploughed back into the Old Boys community itself, for the benefit not only of ourselves, but future Old Boys as well. So we finished 2024 cash positive. We still had some reserves that we were building up to settle that debt, but since the anonymous donor came and settled the debt, we actually utilized those funds in part to put back into the prep pavilion, so to the tune of 150,000 rand to help finish the building that the school was completing. I'd also like to say that our net asset position is very positive as well, with only just sundry creditors to clear off, which is normally done for evenings like this, which the school helps provide, set up and pay for. So we just need to settle those debts, but that is significantly less than our cash flow position, even after the donation of 150,000. As Andrew mentioned earlier, our cash flows that we expect to see come through in two forms. One, either annual expectations, where the idea of a fee coming from school leavers as a once-off donation to be a member comes through, and we can expect that to continue to come through. And then our event revenue that we generate. So we can think about our golf days, our special events. In fact, the plaques that you see on the other side of the beam here raised 78,000 Rand in one day. And it doesn't take a lot to actually generate. It just takes a little bit of effort from the community to drive these initiatives. So our plea there is, where we do have initiatives that you find value in, please come and join us and contribute your value so that we can continue to grow. We are, at this stage, because it's quite early on in the year, we're looking at March year to date, we haven't yet received any income. We're still waiting for those flows to come in as our events start to kick in from this period on. But I anticipate that the year will close very similarly to where we are now. So, and if we do close cash positively, we will continue to fund our initiatives that we have from our strategic sessions that we had earlier this year and grow those pots. I think the decision of the Treasury and that of the committee is to decide where we allocate it to. And I think that's a very positive message generally. In the past, we were just building funds, waiting for something to spend. Now we're actually looking to spend. So where there are those people with initiatives that are worthy causes, please come and chat to us. Get involved where you can, and we'll look to see where we can fund them. My thanks to the committee for this.
other committee members.
Ring tape.
In the spirit of keeping it very simple, I went back and looked at your very convoluted constitution. So I was delighted to hear that it's going to be looked at and worked on a little bit. But certainly, all I need to do really is say that first of all, that we have a required quorum to have the AGM tonight, and we have a process whereby the committee steps down, they resign effectively at the beginning of this evening, really, I suppose, but have done that as well. And as it is, we then call at this particular meeting, or before, and we have done both, for those that would like to step up to the committee space, and they're nominated. We have, at this stage, got 9 nominees here, and I'm happy to take further nominees from the floor, should there be anybody that would like to step into the space. But nominated for the year ahead, Andrew Munro, Matthew Ramsden, Greg Murphy, David Diaz, Kai Marini, Dan Gladulich, Michael Bembridge, Andrew Kirkland, and Brad Latilla Campbell are the nominees for the committee, but we really are quite happy. If you're inspired in where you are right at the moment, put your hand up. If you'd like to come back into the space, if you have been involved in the past, you're very, very welcome. Are there any further nominees from the floor? Anybody else that would like to join? You don't have to join right now. We can also co-opt you later. That is the one joy about your constitution. It does allow for that as well. Right. Not seeing anybody jumping to their feet, I'm going to congratulate these 9 gentlemen, and as your committee for the next year, they in turn will select and elect their office bearers out of the committee at their first meeting coming up next. So it's as simple as that. So thank you very much. I just give them a round of applause.
Thank you all for the re-election. Congrats to my fellow committee members. We look forward to the next 10 that were going to join us in the next half an hour after a couple of beers. I'm sure it's going to be great. The Constitution clearly says after beer number 2, you are part of the committee. 1 Kala Mazumba on the Bavuma Oval, and that's all it takes. Okay, so before we close out, is there any other business? Is there anything anyone would like to raise or talk about?
Are there any questions online? I don't know if anyone's asked.
No.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Not Mr. Chair, but yeah. My son is trying to get hold of you guys.
Oh, right.
By email.
Okay.
Email to you, Andrew, to Ned Ramsden, to Old Boys.
Yes.
Are those the correct emails? How does he communicate?
Dan? Which Dan? Dan's our
Dad?
communication. So what we actually are doing is Kai and Dan. You raised a really good point. Actually, I think a lot of boys have said it's been quite tricky. Like, how do I connect? So between Kai and Dan, they've done a sort of a full audit of the Old Boys website. One of the things we are going to be taking moving forward on is redeveloping the Old Boys website, so that it is very clear and easy. You know, if you go to St David's, which I would think would be most people's first step to think, how do I connect with Old Boys? Go to the school's website. From there, I'd imagine that there's sort of a path to the Old Boys site where there's very clear explanation of how to get in contact. If your sons are on the WhatsApp community, obviously shout out on that. We'd love them. You can probably just add them and just.
I'm not on, yeah. I don't know how that works.
Disgusting. After having served on the committee for so long. Okay, but we'll get you involved. And actually, please, like for those of you who aren't, like, you know, this thing spreads organically, so we need you to invite your mates, your WhatsApp groups that you're on. Say, listen, guys, it's a cool community. What we're really trying hard not to do is to flood everyone's WhatsApp inboxes with spam and everything. So obviously around this weekend, we've had quite a few messages just because it's the biggest weekend in our calendar. But typically it's going to be kept to the different channels and very sort of important and few messages. If there's a spin-off that has got lots of chatter on it, great. Yeah. But otherwise, I can, if they're really, really wanting to phone me, I can give you my phone number in the morning.
I've got your email. And Andrew and Matt.
Well, they have they? Okay,
Yeah.
well, cool.
From when I was on the
Okay, no, that's fine, share it.
So you should have had it 2 months ago.
I think we say you haven't responded.
Oh, they just...
Wondering who that was.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. All right, so if there's nothing else, we'll please bow our head in prayer. Okay. Gracious God, we thank you for guiding us through this annual general meeting. We are grateful for the spirit of fellowship, the shared memories, and the commitment to our Marist mission that have filled this gathering. Please bless all who have contributed their time, talents, and energy today. May the decisions we have made and the plans we have set in motion bear fruit for the good of our community and beyond. As we depart, keep us steadfast in living out the values of faith, service, and love, inspired by Mary, our Mother. We ask this through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Okay.
Cool. So for those of you who thought you were coming to a First Thursday event and actually got somehow trapped in an AGM, apologies. Now on to the main event, the First Thursdays where we can have a chat. So Dave Nosworthy has come to share some insights, which we're very chuffed to have. We're going to keep this very formal. Informal. So please jump up, grab some food, get some drinks. The bars are stocked, and then we're going to come around and have a sort of a casual fireside chat. Although we're not going to go outside because there might be some guys online who might want to hear things. But yeah, we'll come and sit. Right. You just never know, eh? I've done like a speech where I've put up my screen for 35 minutes and I actually not knowing if there's anyone on. You can't crack a joke anyway, no? Anyway, excellent guys. It's going to be a treat. Dave, thanks for joining us. As I said, let's keep it very informal. Jump up, grab food, get a few drinks, fire off questions. Yeah. I'm really intrigued. I've got a boy in grade 3, and sort of this is going to be his sporting journey. He loves the sport. So, yeah, really interested to hear what that entails. Excellent. Cool. Have a good day.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, good evening to everyone. I panicked earlier when you said this is very formal. So I'm very pleased we're all relaxed and there's no fire here, but I can see one out the corner of my eye, so that's pretty cool. Let me start off by declaring, I love Old Boys societies or associations. Let me declare I'm not a St. David's Old Boy. Unfortunately, there's some really great things that happen in that space. I think I won't tell you which school I went to because they always say that the schools that you go to, that guy will always stand up and say which school he went to and sort of arrogance about it.
I have a question.
Oh.
What school did you go to?
I was waiting for that. Thank you. Couldn't wait. Grey High School in PE. So, exactly. So yeah, a lot of similarities, in fact, you know. I was thinking about it today. One of our mottos was Tria Junta in Uno. 3 joined in 1 for those lawyers that are here and know their Latin. And it was mind, body, and spirit. And if you look at it across there, gentleman, scholar, sportsman, it's pretty much aligned in terms of the types of philosophies and thinking that the schools have. And look, I was really blessed to be at Grey. I'm a sports mad man. I think my marks weren't what they were supposed to be. My father wasn't always very pleased. I was one of those guys in the hostels that was watching sport highlights when I should have been in the prep room. So today I think it's actually paid off for me, which is a good thing. My dad will be happy with that. But yeah, I've also been very blessed, Andrew, in terms of my life in sport. I think back to how many guys in the cricket world are just this close to being professional sportsmen. And we all want our kids to be. Trust me, I've learned that in St. David's. Your grade 3 boy will want to be. Sometimes the parents want it more than the boy, so it's that balance. But I was also just mentioning to one of the dads here this evening that I'm a believer at 16 is sort of the age where you really start getting an understanding if this boy can go through or not. They start growing a moustache and they start getting a bit stronger and they develop. And mentally, they develop massively. So I think that's something that I've learned over time. But St. David's sport, I'll talk a little bit more and I'm open to some questions. I hope that's why you gents are sitting here and not just spying on things. But yeah, in terms of sport, like in my life, like I say, I've been blessed. I've traveled the world, and I think many guys that are friends of mine, just 3 weeks ago, I think Mr. Teal allowed me some time off. I went to my reunion, and believe it or not, I now look really young, but it was my 40th since I left school. And you know, a lot of those guys have become hugely successful businessmen and lawyers and you name it, CEOs of everything. But some of them haven't had probably some of the experiences I've had in change rooms. Many stories to be told there, maybe some tonight, not too many. But just traveling the world, I think about my trips to Pakistan, for example. Just a different world. We got thrown a little bit under the bus there. I'll share that with you straight away, really. We took a SA under 19 side, and we went just after the New Zealand side was bombed in the hotels. Don't know if you remember that in about 2007, somewhere there. And they sold me down the river because I was the Titans coach at the time, and they said, we want you to take this team overseas, would you take it? I said, I'm in, I'm there, no worries. It was only a week later they told us where we were going. And that became a panic instantly, because for those who watched that sort of time frame, the New Zealand guys were under some massive pressure in those hotels, bombs going off around them. And that was an experience for me, getting off the plane, 48 degrees, you can't breathe, sweating, get into the airport space. I'm not lying if I say there were 150 guys with AK-47s protecting us. It was that sort of tour, we could do nothing. So quite an experience in trying to play there. We played in the Gaddafi Stadium. The under-19s, ours were like this watching, but not one spectator. So they weren't allowed at the time. And it was just a whole mind shift for us. We had young players like Abby de Villiers, Faf du Plessis was on that tour, JP Duminy, Vernon Philander, the first practice we had, he was vomiting all over the place. It was so hot, and the Delhi belly, or you can't even touch the water there. You go into your bathroom, you're drinking bottled water to brush your teeth and stuff like that. So I think that tour I lived off Pringles chips and Energade. I was too scared to touch anything. The last night we found a Nando's and we tucked in there, but I struggled on the way home on the aeroplane. So those are some of the experiences. I've also been very blessed to have coached in New Zealand. That's a special place. I loved my time there, 3 to 4 years I think it was, and just humble people, I think you guys will know humbleness and the types of characters you see around and live with. They all like that. I was quite amazed. I left the Titans job here where we got sponsored by Lazarus Ford, and I drove this 3-litre Mondeo. I thought it was the king of Centurion and all this branding, and I got to New Zealand and they gave me my car keys and said it's over there. And it was a 1982 Toyota Ascent, I think it was, 1300. And I took it and I was very humble, and I went and got in the car, drove to the hotel, and it was literally leaking through the doors, the rain. And I just thought, what have I got myself into here? But it was a massively humbling experience that. Going down to my first training session, we had a young Brendan McCullum in our squad. Shane Bond, for those of you who know, the fast bowler. It was amazing. As I drove in, they came and greeted me. They took my bags out of the car. And they went and said, Coach, what do you want set up? How can we help? Trust me, that's not happening in South Africa. And in fact, today it's even worse. So it was just those sort of characters. My first Christmas I spent there, my family hadn't come across yet, was alone. I must have had the whole side inviting me to come with their families. And I eventually spent it with Shane Bond and his family. So that was an awesome experience. The other one was the UK. I was there for 3 or 4 years at Somerset County Cricket Club. Different culture, different people, the media. That's another whole book I'll write one day. Could do nothing right as a South African. And I walked into a bit of a train smash there. There was a guy called Craig Kiswitter who played for England. And there was a young player by the name of Josh Butler, who you'll all know as well. Both wicket-keeper batsmen. So I walked into an environment where Kiswitter had just been dropped from England and Butler had just been selected, so you can imagine. Now we have to make a decision who's going to keep for Somerset. And the politics that went on in the side, and it split the whole team. So a lot of lessons learned in terms of how to manage and deal with people and egos. I think it's fair to say the UK guys have the biggest egos I've come across in terms of county cricket. Very talented. Their thinking in the game is really good, so I can't criticize that, but there's quite a few big egos there. And a tough environment. We played 11 days in a row once. So we played a 4-day game away at Northamptonshire. That night we got on the bus and we drove down to Kent. We played a 1-day game. That night we got on the bus and we drove up to Yorkshire and we played another 4-day game. So that was now 9. We then drove across to, I think it was Durham, and played a T20, and then we drove home for a 50-over game. So it was 11 days on the trot. And yeah, it was a mind blast. There was a guy by the name of Peter Trigo who got 4 noughts in a row. By day 9, when he got an edge down to third man, I thought he had scored 100. And it's dealing with those guys every night in your room, coming to see you. I can't tell him how to get off naught, like seriously. But the mental mind blast of that type of trip for 11 days, it makes it tough. And it's an interesting fact. some of the highest suicide rates in world sport comes from county cricket. And it just tells you the way they have to play, the extended times, the late hours. It's totally a different world. You don't fly, like if we play in Johannesburg for the Lions, I was the Lions coach, we would fly to Cape Town, we'd fly to Durban. You don't do that there, you're on buses. Luxury buses. When I was at Somerset, we managed to secure the old Manchester United bus. And it's like a hotel on that thing, let me tell you. The boys' eyes were like this. And we could play cards at the back, and there were toilets, and we just drove. But it's tough, you know, traveling around like that, just mentally. And you've got 4 knots in a row, and you go to your hotel room on your own, and the next day the guys are reminding you, you know, the 5 rings are coming, the rings, you'll be our first Olympian this year. Those things are flying around, trust me. And the one night he actually went out and went to a fish restaurant. It was a team meeting. They banned him from having calamari because of the rings. So it's those little fun things just happening all the time, to be honest. Yeah, I think, and then maybe you must jump in if you want to. I'm just rattling off here. There's some special people I've met in my life, and that I'm just still on the blessed part. Somebody like Richie McCaw, when I was in New Zealand, is quite an interesting character. And you would have all watched how successful he is. I still think one of the best rugby players that was around. He was always over the line, we know that. But from a leadership point of view, and Robbie Dean's the coach of the New Zealand side. And one of the things, like I said, they were humble. Within my first week of getting to New Zealand in Christchurch, so that's where I was based, I got a call from this guy, said, "Hi, it's Robbie speaking." I said, "Hi Robbie, how are you, bud?" "No, all good, I'm wanting to take you for coffee." And I said, "Okay, well, in relation to?" "No, I'm the coach down the road," because the stadium was just down the road. And then I clicked, it's Robbie Deans. He was just so humble, he wants to have coffee. So I was like, "Yes sir, no sir, I'll be there, what time, you know?" And we got together, had a coffee. Within a week I was on his boat doing jet boating, taking me fishing. I thought I was on a holiday there in New Zealand, and such a beautiful country. But that's how humble they are. And I learned from that guy just so much. He then got me into a group of coaches. It's something we do not do in South African sport. And we're doing it at St. David's, which Steele will be happy to know, that we collaborate. I went to a meeting there where we had the New Zealand netball coach, Robbie Deans, we had the soccer coach, we had the golf coach, basketball, every sport. We spent, and they used to get together once a month for 2 hours, and they'd just talk sport. They'd talk about how they discipline their players. They'd talk about some training techniques. And you cross-pollinate into different sports. And I know South African sport doesn't do it enough. In our space, we're starting to do that. Also not enough, and there's challenges to it, which I'll maybe elaborate a little bit later in our St. David's space. But that was just awesome for me. Again, so many blessings and learnings from that sort of space. I also got a call from a guy called Richard. Well, it happened to be Sir Richard Hadley. And he lived in Christchurch. He said he wants to catch up with me. So I caught up with him. And he was the national selector at the time. So he immediately said, "I want you involved. The way we work it here is we've got 3 selectors, but the coaches around the country, there's 6 of you. You are in contact with us weekly, talking about opposition players. I don't want to hear about your own players." Which was awesome, another concept. And you wonder why the Kiwis do so well at sport, because they're smarter. They're ahead of the game in those sort of things. I'd love to have gone and told him how good Brendan McCullum was, but I couldn't. I had to go and talk about somebody else in another side. And that's how they operate. He sent me, I've still got it somewhere on one of my laptops, a document, an Excel spreadsheet of every single New Zealand player from 1970 on their stats. Now, I know today it's all laptops and stuff, but in those days they had Excel spreadsheets on every performance, how they got out, where they got out, and it was this document that I was able to have access to. So they weren't scared to share it with a South African that could afford it on to Omar Henry at the time in South Africa. They trusted me being in the system that I would play a role and contribute. And I think, again, I'm giving a lot of credit to these Kiwis tonight, but that's the type of characters I really align to. that there's humbleness and there's real smartness in the way they operate. So those were some of my experiences. Again, I coached at the Titans, the Lions in South Africa, also blessed to have done that. Very different environments you can imagine in South Africa, very volatile, different requirements, dealing with different pathways in terms of how guys get to the top or don't get to the top. On the way here tonight, I had a call from Russell Domingo, who's the current Lions coach, and he was just chatting to me about some of the obstacles and what did I do and how did we do that in your day and stuff like that. So nothing's changed, to be honest, and I can't wait till next Wednesday, by the way. I hope you're all looking forward to the test final. And yeah, we can ask questions on that as well if you want, but I think we underachieve for a nation. I'm a big believer in that. And when I came back from New Zealand, I was even more convinced. Because if we could just implement some of the things that they're doing or have been doing with 60 million people versus 5, we're going to dominate. And we haven't dominated. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, and that can be shared maybe later as well. But there's a start off for you. So I've spoken for too long.
Thank you, Dave. I've got a question for you. So, being a cricketer myself and being so close to the sport, one, how did you actually get into the coaching mold? Because the coaching mold, you're dealing with people all the time. And then two, being so close to the sport, I can speak from experience, sometimes it's so overwhelming to be so close to it day in and day out that you almost lose the love for the sport. Obviously, your career's taken you where you've got incredible experiences. Those are the good times. Like, looking back at it now, how did you sort of stay close to the sport, and how did you actually get into the coaching mold? Other than the playing mold, maybe that.
Sure. So the one thing I did all my life, my playing life, was I went to Grey. I think we were really blessed to have good professional coaches there, like we have here. We also, like we do here, we have PE classes. You go and play cricket at the college. You get a net, and that's quite a good thing as well. It's stuff we're talking about in our big school space as to how to maybe do some of that whilst getting strength bases and stuff. But that was a starting point, the love of the game. And I happened to do quite well. I remember my big first success at Grey was the border day pot match in Standard 9 or grade 11. And I managed to get an 80 against the Day Boys, which was maybe the first side. And I started then getting belief. So some of these little internal games create belief sometimes and confidence, and I try and stimulate that in our own space now. So without going too much deeper, I managed to play first-class cricket for Northerns and for Border in those days. I didn't have the coaching possibly that you get today, because I'll share something which maybe you think I'm being arrogant, but in matric I broke Graham Pollock's record at school. Trust me, I was not a Graham Pollock, because he's a legend. But after school, I didn't have any direction, and I needed it. And I think today the guys are blessed with a lot of good coaching. So I knew in my own mind I wasn't quite going to make it. So one thing I did as a player, I always coached. I always found time when I was at UPE to pop up to Grey and say, "What do you need?" I took under 14 Fs one year. I remember when I was playing for Border, we used to run holiday clinics. I included guys. Hansie Cronje's brother is a guy called Frans Cronje. He played with me at Border. We would have holiday clinics together. We ran these things. I enjoyed the coaching side of things, actually, more than playing. It was a lot easier than facing Alan Donald at 100. So I just got into it slowly but surely. And then you all need luck in life, I think. And I'm sure a lot of you have had lucky breaks. And my lucky break came when I was about to, in 1998, I realized I'm going nowhere. And I knew we had just come back into international cricket then. I hadn't worked the way I should have. There were better players than me. I accept that. You're not good enough when you're averaging just on 30 odd. And I made the decision I was going to stop playing. And I got a call from a guy called Anton Ferreira. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. The Yogi is his nickname. And he had just started the Titans Academy, sponsored by Vodacom. And he said, "I need a head coach. We're looking for ex-players. Are you interested?" So I moved from Border, where I was. At the time, in those days, you had to work as well. You didn't just play. So I was an area manager for a laboratory supply company. And I resigned, and I couldn't wait to get up there. And I went coaching. And within 3 years, again, very blessed, Peter Kirsten was the coach of the Titans. He needed to move back for family reason to Cape Town, and they offered me the role, and the rest was history. So I got into coaching. But all along the way I coached, and I did my courses. And a lot of players say you don't have to go do coaching courses. I've played this game. I'm one of those guys that say go and do that, because you're always learning how to deal with people. You don't learn that as a player, I can assure you. How to select is a tough one. You need to know how to select, how to talent identify. That doesn't always come from a book, by the way. It comes with years of experience. And my wife laughs at me because I'll sit and watch the IPL the other night and I'll say, wicket's coming, watch. And just pick it up. You just get that sense something's going to happen. And that happens to just be in the game for too long, as you maybe suggested. But they're downtimes. I've been in I remember a particular night we played a final for the Titans in Bloemfontein. And we lost against Free State. And that was in 2005. Going back to your hotel room alone is tough as a coach, because you just know what's coming the next day from the media and whatever. And you've got to go back and report to the board. So trust me, it's never as glamorous as you think. And the one guarantee as a coach is that if you win, it's the players, and if you lose, it's the coach. Comes with the territory. I've never heard a player to this day, well, there might be one or two, that's gone up and said, thank you for the trophy, thanks to the coach, he's helped us along. It's hardly ever that, be the players. And I'm not looking for that, but it's just the territory that it comes with, and the hard work behind the scenes by your bowling coach, your batting coach, your physios, those guys work hours. Let me tell you, I'd never want to be a physiotherapist. I think Craig's over there now. He'll know. But in a sporting environment, those guys are 24 hours, I promise you. I've had physios with me that are up at 5 in the morning, 3 in the morning, every 2-hour slots, going and putting ice packs on people in the middle of the night, giving them a tablet to make sure they can go back the next day while I'm sleeping. But they've told me they've done it, so I trust them. So yeah, it's been that type of lifestyle. And I came to a stage after Somerset, which was 2015, I think. I made the decision that I was tired of living out of bags. And my wife and I had been on the road. My kids came back, wanted to study, they had finished school, and they've travelled around to schools, you can imagine. They're quite hardy to have done that. They wanted to come and study at Wits, so we decided to come back to Johannesburg. And that's where I based myself, started my own businesses and mainly in cricket really. And then I got spoken to by this man on my right, and we started engaging about cricket at St David's, and so it's grown. And so I've been here for way too long now probably, but enjoying it.
Not long enough.
So for now it's good. I have had, Mr. Teal knows, I've had along the way a little taste to come back. Do you want to come back? And like you say, you sort of know, I want to, you still want that, but deep down, there's bigger fish to fry still, I think. So that's the space I'm in, yeah.
I've got a few more questions that maybe the floor would like to ask. Just a general one. For next week,
Yes.
what do you rate our chances, and what do you think is necessary to win?
Well, we got a 50-50 chance. I think Australia are in a similar position to us, because they don't quite know what their team is at the moment, which we don't either. If I had to ask you who the top 3 are going to be, well, we know Rickleton and Markham have been told they're going to open. Who's the number 3 or number 4? That's up for debate. The Aussies are in a similar position, The pitch will play a role. Nathan Lyons has to play for Aussie. I would think Keshav Maharaj probably needs to play for us, but we've got so many seamers lined up there. So, in terms of playing at Lords, let me tell you about that. Lords is the most unbelievable experience ever. I wish I could go back there every day. And just sitting upstairs in the change room, you'll as viewers on TV watch the balcony there. It's about that thin, I promise you. And you can fit 5 guys across, and the rest of the guys are hanging out of windows. But it's such a great environment behind there. The best part about Lords are the lunches, as you can see. I made sure we had lots of lunch. But they literally come in the morning with a menu. Starters, main, dessert. And it's served. It's the only county ground where you get a served lunch. And the starters are like a world-class restaurant, like the mains are lobsters and shrimp and steak and medium rare or overdone, what do you want? It's on that level. So the first thing that county cricketers do every year when the fixtures come out is look for what? Lords. Great. Oh, damn, one-day game. Because you want to be there for a 4-day game. So it's just an amazing environment. They bring you your menu, you sign it off in the morning, and that's why it's the home of cricket, to be honest. But the other thing about Lords, getting back to the game, there's this big slope. I don't know if you all know about that. And it's quite a big drop from one end to the other end. So when you're on certain pitches, it's a little bit more slopier than the others. At the top, it's not as bad, and as you go further, it sort of dips off further. And as a bowler, if you're bowling from one end, you know, it's going to move quite a lot. So I think the toss is going to be quite important. That's the first thing I'd say. Often teams, I don't know what the pitch is going to be like, but often teams look to bowl first and try and bowl the team out for as little as possible. Then once it's sort of a drier, if the weather's good, you try and bat once and then try come back later. That's what they generally try to do there. This is a 5-day test with a 6th day as a reserve. So I don't believe it will go 5 days. There's my prediction. I think it's going to be done within 4 days. Some people are telling me, Hugh Page the other day cornered me and said 3 days. But they've flown off for a week. So I said, well, just fly for 3 days. No, I must be there for a week. And so, yeah, let's see. But it's genuinely 50-50 because our attack is very strong. It's our batting that worries me. I think our batting is very weak. Markram I love. I think he's hot and cold. Rickleton started to show some good form, but on the slope as a left-hander and a right-hander, I suppose. He's never played at Lords in that sort of environment. Markram's played it a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see. And then you got the Stubbses, who are flashy as anything. They want to play shots. On Lords, it's going to be really tough to do that. So batting time, being patient, is going to be quite important. And the Aussies have a Steve Smith. Marnus Labuschagne hasn't done too well lately, but he has the capability of batting time. So it'll be really interesting. Preparation has been poor, I think, for South Africa. I spoke to a national player last week. I had coffee with him. I won't say who, but it's something he said to me. Why do you think we haven't performed in World Cups? I've always said preparation. And it's not always about training how many days before. It's about knowing who your team is. And you think about World Cups, go back in them. I don't think we've ever known our best one-day team going into a World Cup before we've got there. There's so many different combinations. And the teams that win know it 8 months out. They know it. And what does that breed? Confidence. They're not scared of getting the axe over their head. And do yourself a favour if you're that sort of statistician and you love cricket, go and have a look at our teams just 3 months before. They change all the time. Opening pair, combinations. No, we're trying this, we're trying that. I don't believe in it. So this test match, we've had now, I think, a 4-day game going on at the moment. And still, we're not sure what the side is, unless Shukri's told them behind the scene you play. Maybe he has, which would be a good thing. Long answer, sorry.
That's a good answer.
Sorry, no, Dave, sort of not to your role at the school. I understand that sort of changed of late, is that correct? What does that entail, and sort of what does the future entail?
So Mr. Teal's double loaded me up. I'm still director of cricket, but love it and enjoy it. I'll still do that. But the new role is the director of sporting performance. So what that means is, please, I'm not accountable for the result on Saturday, which some parents tend to think I am. But behind the scenes, I think, no, I'll take the heat. I've done it before, so that's also fine. But I think it's a role that is really trying to integrate the different sports to become a lot closer. Spoke about the Robbie Deans thing, where we sat and spoke sport. So we've started doing that. Never before, in sort of the 6-7 years before, have I been able to, in a formal situation, sit and talk to other directors. We're doing that now. And we're trying to also, my main focuses are to try and look at how the boys are loading themselves, because they're doing so much. at the moment. Not just sport, there's academics, there's cultural stuff, which is also vitally important in terms of the gentleman, scholar, sportsman, how we operate at the school. We want that all-round boy, but what is their loading? So we're having a look at that behind the scenes. I am interacting with the directors of different sports as to how they're operating. Some of them like it, some of them don't, but I ask questions because we want to get better. We do want to be known as a sporting school, which we are. But how do we get just to that next level and just become the preferred choice? That's what we should be. We're not going to go down the line of buying left, right, and centre. I can assure you of that. But in a few years' time at the Alex campus, we'll have 1,000 boys. We should be competing a lot better. How can we do it? So we have a lot of those sort of discussions. One of the other roles is coach development, just what type of coaches we got. So I interact with the directors on that basis. The medical side of things, Mr. Small there will know we're chatting about medical stuff. We've got a trial program going on at the moment called MediCoach, which is not giving me everything I want at the moment, but it's a good start. And we're developing this program with 50 boys, where every night, they're always on their phones anyway, they'll get a WhatsApp, and it'll be 5 or 6 questions. How many hours did you spend on the field today? What was it? Did you go to gym? How many hours of sleep did you get? Just a couple of questions. We keep collecting data, and it goes onto the system, and I won't bore you with the whole thing, but it comes out with a score at the top, or color code. He's in the green, or he's in the red, or he's in the orange in the middle. And we had a boy recently, now in the last day or two, was in the red, and the MediCoach guys alerted us to it. And that guy in 1 week was going to, he was playing rugby, so he was going to 2 practices, minimum 2 practices a week, plus the game. In that same week, he was doing cross country twice. In that same week, he was going to water polo, provincial water polo stuff. And in that same week, had just started soccer pre-season. So he was in proper red and not a good space to be in. This week, just by us identifying it, saying to him, cut back, do this, he's gone into the orange. I saw it tonight before I came. So it's a good indicator for us. And in time, I'll have to twist some of the academic staff and Mr. Teal, but in time, it'd be really nice to integrate some academic stuff into that. Just so that the teachers can see, I wonder why Johnny's sleeping at the back of the class. That would have been me. But there's a reason for it. He's now in the red. And why is he in the red? Find out why he's in the red. Integrate some of the wellness stuff. You know, sometimes guys have a death in the family. We don't even know that. And he gets to a practice and he's down and whatever. Maybe we can link that into this MediCoach thing, that the coach gets to the practice, has a look at his players, says, yes, this guy, he's in the red. Why is he in the red? There's a family problem. Now he knows, and he can deal with it a lot better. So it's a lot to do with dealing with players on an individual basis. We've got so many students, you can imagine it's not an exact science. But we're going down this road of exploring how we can do this. And I think if we grasp some of the good things out of it, it will take our sport naturally to a little bit of a different level. So that's what's happening in that space. And then the last thing, one of my main roles, Mr. Teal showed you this evening, some of the new facilities that are happening, which is massively exciting. That on its own is going to generate a lot of excitement and will naturally get us into different spaces, I think. So I'm on top of those sort of aspects as well with Mr. Teal, which is great news. Do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I just want to ask,
Yeah.
you just mentioned like a multidisciplinary athlete. I mean, there's many in this room, there's many that's come through the school.
Yeah.
What's the vision for that? Because, I mean, it sounds like this young gentleman who was in the red, he seems like a pretty talented guy.
Very.
How do you guys then say he actually can't play rugby because he's provincial water polo? How do you discuss with the directors? How do you talk to them and say, maybe this is where you need to be focusing at?
Yeah.
Because you're like, I mean, there was an Eddie de Villiers who did a lot of sports.
Yeah.
How are you going to nurture this kid? What's the vision for these kids to say, pop rugby because maybe it's not your thing, go here.
Yeah.
And how do you guys see that?
So we don't really know just yet, to be honest. We've got a strategic sports seminar coming up in July, where all the directors will be there, our executive will be there. Our masters in charge of the different sports will be there. It's the first time since I've been here we've had one of those. And I'm looking forward to discuss these things and to see, do you really want to go the specialization route? I'm not a fan of it. Maybe at 16 you've got a good idea. There's a young guy called Jason Rolls at our school. All he wants to do is hit balls, and he's a South African under 19 captain at 16. But maybe he's a guy. We've got a soccer player that's already playing for, I think, Morocco Swallows, who's full-time in that space. So we do have these individuals. But ultimately, a guy like Jason Rolls, I've said to him, you make sure you go play some hockey matches too. Because we need numbers to be able to still compete with Jeppy and Kes like that. You don't want guys specializing and not being available for a fifth team hockey or rugby space. So we're not quite there deciding exactly how to manage it. But in the case of this youngster, it worked quite well yesterday or the day before, where I found this information. I immediately put it on our WhatsApp group, Modern Technology, of all the directors. And I said, who's closest to this guy? Go and have a chat with him. He was on the rugby field. So our director of rugby went across. In his wonderful tone, he came back to me and said, I've spoken to Mr. Gander. Enlightening was his word. He said, what does that mean? Enlightening. But that's his character. So anyway, then he phoned me and he said, listen, I've spoken to him. This is what he's been doing, boom, boom, boom. So immediately I said, thanks. I phoned Mr. Ireland from the cross-country point of view, who assured me that cross-country was ending. But now that's not a compulsory thing either. It's his choice to go. So he's now pressurized probably in his own mind because he's feeling like he needs to be there, which he didn't really have to be there. We've got to educate them. But sometimes as coaches, I know what it's like. I'll walk down the corridor and say, hey, see you at cricket today. You know, it's one of those. Now the guy thinks, she's I better be there, else I won't be selected. So we've got to be careful with these sort of things, how we manage boys, you know. Then I phoned the soccer guys, Mr. Facette. I said, as you've seen on the group, please have a word with young Gander that he doesn't have to come to your pre-season right now. Are you happy with that? He said, of course I'm happy with it. So he was going to have a word with him over the last day or two. Then I phoned Mr. Wyatt in the water polo. I said, seriously, provincial water polo this time of year, surely you can miss one a week. He said, absolutely. But again, it's the boy that's thinking, yes, if I'm not there, I'm not going to be selected. So we're managing these things quite well, I think, within what we can do. I'll share something else just to add to this. Last week, we sent out a letter to all the provincial sports bodies as a school. As directors, we sat and we said we're not happy with the way they're operating out there. Because they just click their fingers and think our boys must be everywhere. It's ridiculous. We don't even know sometimes the boy is not at practice. No, he's at the lines. He's in the indoor nets. Like, seriously, what are you doing? So we sent quite a good letter, a formal sort of letter, which Mr. Teal approved as well. And we sent it to every one of these bodies. I've had a few responses to say, thank you, we understand. We haven't heard from the rugby, because they do their own thing. They're on their own mission. The Lions, funnily enough, have replied to me. And I got a call from the chairman of the water polo guys. So I think we're the first school to start dipping our toes into that space. But they've got to understand it's school first, ultimately. And we want our boys to play provincial, and we want them to be the best. But I can talk from experience in the cricket space. Some of the things we're working on here, and they go there, it's like chalk and cheese, what they're telling them. And then they select a boy. A couple of years ago, we had a boy that played in the Lions side, was a number 5 for us, and he went and opened the batting for the Lions. Got nothing. Averaged 12 for the week. So the communication is very poor, and we're going to get better at that. And that was the first sort of formal letter. Maybe some have taken offense to it, but we need to start taking control a little bit of our boys, because it's becoming a bit of a mess, as you're seeing in some of the rugby schools around the country. That some of them are semi-professional, to be honest, and they're spending money like you've never heard. There's just this new Super League developing there. And I don't think we're looking to be in that space, by the way, unless somebody's got 40 million for me. Then we maybe look at it.
I don't think you want to be in that space.
No, you don't. No.
I think it's actually...
It's messy.
It's unhealthy for...
But there's a
17,
reason.
18-year-old boys.
There's a reason for that space. And the reason is that there is no longer a pathway. Your pathways on our schools. When you leave school, the Craven Week, every province will have 40 contracts to offer. and they're there to offer straight away. When you leave school, you go to the Sharks Academy, you go to the Lions Academy. In the old days, you'd go play club rugby for a while first, and you might come out of that pool. Or if you're really good, you go to an under-21 side for a few years or a few months. Now there's no pathway, same as cricket. There's no pathway. They did away with their academies because of funding. Now they're relying on the schools to fund. And trust me, we're funding. You know, there's some big money that's going into our sports programs and stuff because they don't have it. So now they're using us as the pathway, and we've got to be very careful how they do that. Yeah.
That's an interesting one for me because it's like anything that leads to success in life, you need a system as opposed to like a set of goals. Like how do you do things? So that means if schools are providing that system that leads to like professional sport, like there won't be any coherence between what are we trying to develop, what's our brand in a particular sport. Like within cricket, like nationally it just won't be like that. Everyone's going to have a different view on how it should be done.
Yeah.
And I suppose with that, like, how do you see it like in a school like this, not these sort of semi-professional schools like this school, versus a professional world? Like, how do these boys go from grade 3? Like, I've also got to study grade 3, so it's interesting to watch compared to when I was in grade 3, compared to what these boys have available to them. But it seems like there's a plan, so I'm just interested to understand how deep does that go? Do you go down to grade 3 level, or do you really start thinking about it from that level?
So again, I really think grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 is about fun, learning and doing different sports. It's massively important to get different skills, but whatever sport that is, they need to be taught the fundamentals properly of that sport. And I think about 4 or 5 years ago, we, for the first time in the prep space, we employed what we call sports interns. And there are now 10, I think, in the sports space, in the prep school, that are with the boys every day, and they know their hockey, they know their rugby, they control it. So they don't teach in the morning, they're specific to that. We make sure we upskill those coaches to be offloading the right information. The directors of sport are involved in the prep space as much as possible, giving those guys what type of programs, what's needed for those age levels and stuff like that. So I can talk in the cricket space again. We got a really good cricket professional there, full-time, a guy called Keegan Moore, and he runs programs. We'll start winter programs after half-term, where the guys will be getting some basic skills and stuff in the cricket space, even though it's soccer. And again, it's not compulsory, but come along if you want. We've created this academy within the school. I don't know if you've heard about the Inanda Sports Academy. I've sort of branded it. Started with cricket, the Inanda Cricket Academy, where we started offering extra paid for sessions with our professional coaches. And what it does is it retains some of our coaches because they know they're able to get a living. They don't have to go to Wanderers or Old Eds or Pirates or wherever and do private coaching, taking our boys away. We can keep them in the sports space with our culture, with the right methods and everything. And we're slowly starting. We opened the Inanda Hockey Academy a few weeks ago. Etienne in the rugby space is talking about doing some stuff. So there are these academies that top up what they don't get at the school space, which is paid for, unfortunately, but they're getting enough in the school space anyway, I think, to cover these bases. And as you get up to the college, it becomes more and more, I don't want to use the word professional, but there's more players with getting proper coaching. So some of our coaches, we just employed a guy called Grant McQuena, who I coached, shows how old I'm getting. I coached him at the Lions. He's just retired, and at the age of 37. And he's had a hell of a career. He scored double hundreds and everything. He's now coaching in our cricket space. A guy called Ayam Ayoli, opening bowler for the Lions. He's coaching in our cricket space. So in the cricket space, I've gone away from many years ago. I think the school knows. I did away with students looking for beer money, which I used to be one of them, by the way. I was there. But it just wasn't giving our boys what they needed to be that stepping stone to the next. So all our coaches in our space, hockey's getting there, rugby's getting there, and ultimately we'd like everybody in that space, every sports space. But to guys that actually in the cricket space, they're all Premier League cricketers at least, or they're professional cricketers. A lot of them now, I think there's 5 of my guys that have gone overseas to play. And then they come back in September, and that's their income in September, and they go overseas and earn pounds in the leagues, because you can make some good money in the leagues. Guys are getting 10, 20,000 pounds for 5 months, which is some nice money to bring home. And then you get a car and accommodation, so you can bring it home and you've got lots of pounds in your pocket. Yeah.
Are any of the teachers still involved in coaching?
Vitally important. I'm a massive fan of that. It's tough because there are a lot of teachers that are also under pressure the more and more these years of academics and stuff. I know that. But I think that leadership is so important. The discipline side, it's so difficult for a guy that plays Premier League cricket and he's a top cricketer. He can do this cricket stuff, but for somebody to say, hey, your shoes, you're late, cut your hair, be disciplined, respect on the field, he can do that, but it's nothing like coming from a teacher, you know. Luckily, some of our teachers know sport quite well as well, but there's few and far between. I think as a school, Mr. Teal knows, we're always trying to employ people and look for people that can offer us both. But it's getting tougher and tougher. It's not an easy task. I know in the old days, yeah, you used to have the brothers that got involved. I was actually, it must have been about 2 years ago, I'll tell a little quick story in between. I was in the pavilion across there, and the old boy group came through. I think it was a group of 1970 or something, to look for their names on the boards. And I said to them, what was sport like in your day? And they're telling me about the brothers and how they umpired. And some of the stories there, my eyes, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The one guy said to me, they invented the free hit. I said, sorry? He said, no, the brothers invented it. How is that possible? No, if it went in the air like that, it was a free, they used to tell the guy, have a free hit, go, you won't get out. And as soon as it's in the air, 30 seconds later, then you'd call a no ball. The last minute, so they got away with it. So they did invent the free hit. Yeah. There's a question there.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just, if anyone wants to get a drink, please grab one. I know it's supposed to be a fireside chat.
Yeah.
While I've asked my question. So, David, thank you. You've spoken a lot about what you've done at the school, what you've done in your career, and what you're planning to do at the school. As an Old Boys committee, as an Old Boys organisation,
Yeah.
what do you think we can do more to help you and the school with growing what your dream is for the school?
Yeah.
Be kinder on the side of the field.
I think one of the big things as an Old Boys Association is keeping traditions. I think that's massively important. Just keeping an eye on the school, how it operates. I think that's almost a duty of care. At the same time, supporting the school when we need your support. It might be, you know, the one thing I hate, and I'll be open and honest here, and there's staff here that do a really good job in that space, but at Grey, there's nothing worse. Our guys get really frustrated when every second week there's a fundraiser because they want your money. And we got to be careful, there's a fine line between that. But when the time comes for something really important, that's when we need to step up and support the school. Because that's how the school survives, to be honest. You can charge the guys thousands and thousands. Ultimately, the bigger your body is of Old Boys, the more financial support, putting money into stuff that can grow boys. The Alex project is unbelievable. I know there's a lot of support that goes into those sort of things. So it's not just sport. I think holistically, you know, there was a guy at the Old Grey dinner now, he donated 25 million rand to the school for a music centre. He's from America, he's an old professor that invented something or did something, but there's that love and care, and I think our staff are really good and caring about growing this space, Old Boys space, and the school's very much aligned to try to make sure that in a few years' time this isn't big enough for us. I know in the 80s, I think it was, mobs played as a sports section, there were leagues and stuff. That would be great, I think, for our boys to be able to leave and still be able to stay in the Marist way and be playing sport of some sort. I still want to also have some more days where you can't, I don't think there's anyone that wants to play our first team rugby at the moment. But we could have a cricket match or a hockey match those type of things I think would be great, and let's try and motivate for a few more of those, that type of support. And yeah.
Greg, you're going to be busy on those days, huh?
Yeah, I think just loving the school, being around, having patience, because let me tell you, in our sports space, we're not going to be the top 3 schools in Gauteng in 2 years' time. It's going to take a process. In the cricket space, when I started here, we were losing to Radio, and that was tough to swallow. And we weren't competing like I wanted to compete. So it took 5-6 years to really try and get to that space. And it's never an easy road. And that's why in my life as a coach, I've probably been reasonably successful, because wherever I've been, it's never been less than about 4 or 5 years where I've been in a role. But today a coach is hired and fired. You look in the Premier League, it's ridiculous. And I still say to this day, all you Man United supporters out there, you've not stuck with a coach. You've got to build a culture. You've got to build a way of doing things. But in that high-powered demand and stock exchanges, it's higher fire. And the teams that have done reasonably well, there's been that support consistently through thick and thin. So we won't get into Premier League soccer though.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Mr. Sullivan.
So you look at cricket at the school, where you've taken it from. You see you probably have 4 SS schools players on the side. Water polo, I think the top 3 in the country. It tells that we won 2 tournaments. Basketball always top 10. And then it feels like our winter sports are lagging compared to our summer sports. Is there a plan or how you see the future for our winter sports? I know you've got a unit of rugby, for example.
So, thanks for the question. I've definitely not taken cricket to that next level. It's been a collective effort. And it's going to need to be the same in other sports. I think it's about people who are in the right positions. You know the story of who sits on the right seat on the bus and all the rest. Get the right people on the right seats in your bus is important. I haven't got enough info into that space, in the winter space just yet, but I know our director of rugby is talking about that, which is great. So there's a lot of hard yards to do there. And just today I spoke to Etienne Finn about it. You know, the sports you mentioned, cricket, water polo, soccer, they're up there. And then you've got this sort of level here of some of the other sports. It's not about bringing this level down to make it all fair and nice. It's about how to keep winning and doing well. And it's not all about winning, how to keep competing and producing and giving opportunities and bringing those guys up there. So that's exactly what you're asking. How do we bring them there? So there's no exact science, and it's going to take years. There's my thinking. I think in the rugby space, you look how small our rugby side is at the moment. They're really small. So when we do in grade 8 start offering scholarships and stuff like that, I've been very lucky, I think, to have identified some really good young grades 6s and 7s over the years, because I've known that space. So Etienne, for example, in the rugby, and Andy in the hockey, need to get into those spaces outside of school and start looking. Doesn't mean we need to start doing it. Probably hasn't been done enough in the past, to be honest. We need to start doing that. And it's not about going to buy and say, hey, I've got a scholarship for you. But if you identify and know them, and they start getting to know you, they start, oh, you're at St. David's, oh, you know, come to the open day. That's all I did. I was, to this day, Mr. Teal will tell you, I don't know in that cricket space who gets how much for a scholarship or whatever. I'm not interested. I don't want to know that, because then I feel like I must select that guy because he's getting 100,000 a year. I don't want to know that. But I know that 4 years earlier, I saw him on the side of a cricket field. I said, come to the open day. Come and have a look, see what it's like, and you get to know the dad and the family. And it's that relationship that you start selling what we're about. And there's a lot of good things to sell here.
Yeah, but there's an example. So you're talking about scouting, recruiting, looking.
Yeah.
And it feels like we don't do any of that for rugby. I'm just saying, parents looking side of the field to speak to other parents, that's how it feels.
So I wouldn't know, because I haven't been in that space for forever. It's my first season in. But it's something we talk about and need to start doing a bit more of, probably. And you know, I don't want to get to the schools that are buying and, you know, going and doing the wrong thing in my mind. I want to keep it above board, that it's for the right reason. And I've always said, this year, Mr. Teal will know again, we missed out on guys gone to St. John's and St. Stithians. But you know why? If they really wanted to come, they would come. Sure. And it makes our job easier. You must want to be here. And we must create an environment that they want to be here. Sure. When they come to the trial days that we have, everybody has to go through a trial. We make sure our coaches are there, they're talking to the boys, we're creating the environment. Then you want to be there. But if you go to a school where it's a rubbish experience, well, maybe you might not want to be there. So those are the small things we'll try and do. But I'm hopeful in the next 2 to 3 years it'll improve. And we got a good under 16 side, and 15s are good if we can grow them. Etienne's, just last comment, and then I'll sorry take another question. Etienne's very big on strength. Yep. And power, as props are, ex-props. But you don't need to be this size because next week you've got to go and bowl and you won't get your bicep past your right ear. So we've got to find the balance. And every sport requires differences in physicality. Rugby have not been probably strong enough over the last few years. There's been a lot of injuries and stuff. So we do have to up that and get a nice base, which Derek Archer is on board with us. I don't know if you all know Mr. Archer, but highly rated across the board. Does the Lions rugby and stuff, and he's very in Pirates rugby, and he's got good knowledge, and we're starting to bring a lot of those factors into play as well, which will give our guys a good base strength. There are a lot of guys that come here and they can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. So we need to teach them how to run. And at prep school, our PE classes are about coordination. So by the time they get to grade 8, 9, and you might not want to be a sportsman, but who knows? By the time you're 16, I started off saying tonight, at 16, suddenly you've got a monster there, and he can do something. And guys develop late, so there's a lot to do. It's exciting work.
It's interesting you said under 14 and 15 and 16 side, or was it under 15 and 16 sides are good? As you maybe an idea, and what I've generally seen is under 14, 15, 16, we seem to have it intact.
Yeah.
And then we go up into the open age group and we seem to fall off the bus slightly there. And I'm just wondering what's the gap?
Again, no real reason, but remember other schools, quite often we see how we've beaten the school last year's on under 15 side, and then you go play them next year and they just stump you and you wonder why. Well, because they've had 14 imports from somewhere else that have suddenly come in. Yeah, it's not the same team you play. And that's happening more often than you realize. We lost to Parktown. We lost to Parktown first this last 2 weekends ago, and there were 6 guys there, for those who watched that game, monsters in the pack, and they brought in 4 from Susselberg Hoor and Welcome Jim and whatever. You know? Yeah, so we're not in that space, but I think, sorry Craig, I'll come to you. One thing there to answer that as well is, once we've got these good sides, how do we take their skills to the next level? Possibly that's more time in some summer space. We've got to try and find time to get these skills. And Derek, to keep them stronger and a little bit more physical, which again, in my cricket space, I'll be the first to say, I haven't focused on that. I just wanted skills. I wanted to say the guy can hit a bat and play straight. I wasn't too worried that he needed to bowl 20 overs and be fit and strong. Because that's the space we were in. We're in a good space now in the cricket world to actually do a bit of both, which is to be. Rugby haven't done enough of that maybe, and that's possibly why our teams also fall off a little bit, because trust me, the schools have got their boys in the gyms all day and all night, which is also not a good thing in my mind, to be honest. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, just to reiterate Ben's point, I think our first team this year actually beat Saints in under 15, and then they changed and went to a shop and they beat us. So we did compete at one point, and they just.
Yeah. Dave, I've got a comment, and it's actually on behalf of the All Boys. Since 2005, our 20-year reunion, The Old Boys have never lost to the first team in an Old Boys cricket match. How many matches have you played? 3. But it's still going. It's still going.
It's still a record. Shouldn't challenge us.
Yeah. We are good.
We'll get you this year with our 4 SA schools players.
So we get Timber back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to try and revive that, and I've been guilty of it too. But let me tell you, because I know it's been proposed, I think Laura's spoken to me about that, but it's also time.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of games we play is ridiculous. Our first team will train, we try to give them Mondays off, they'll train Tuesday. Wednesday, every afternoon will be a Johnny Wade fixture, or an SA 20 fixture have now been added in as well, so sometimes it's Wednesday, Thursday. Then you're still trying to do some skills or technical work or whatever you're doing for Friday, and then Saturday you got a game. And then trust me, one of the main reasons in the cricket space we've done quite well is because most of them also go play club cricket on a Sunday. So these guys are shattered. You know, we have to pull them back and say, you're not bowling this week, finished. And that's why our squads are sometimes in the first team of 15 guys, we just rotate them to try and look after them, much to the frustration of them themselves who want to play every game, but we do the right thing for the boy. Yeah.
Dave, one question, just about sort of the change in cricket over the years, and I think sort of the famous South Africa-Australian game at the Wanderers, was it 438? I think sort of mentally changed cricket, where suddenly we realised maybe we've been holding back, and sort of the impact, and maybe on coaching, to saying actually we've been too conservative maybe, like go out there and hit the ball. How have you seen that change over the years and approached as a coach?
Listen, as a player, we used to score 250 over a game and thought we were in to win it. And yes, we were really in and we were to win it. And the other team would get 170. Now you can't score 250 over a game, it will be over in 32 overs. So it's a massive change. It's been a massive mind shift change. The bats have got bigger and heavier. Fact, I promise you. And I think our bowlers aren't probably as skilled. And there's not as many fast bowlers around as there used to be, because you're playing a lot more cricket, so they're getting more injured. Where in the old days, you'd get into a game, and I knew that I'd have Alan Donald from one end, a guy called Nico Pretorius from the other end, who also bowled 150, and you think you get past them, and Corrie van Zyl would come on, and then you think you get past him, and there was a guy called Brad Player who bowled 142. So you had 4 guys in the 140 plus. Today you go and watch domestic cricket, you might have 2 or 1 in a side that's bowling 140 plus. And it's because of the amount of cricket, which, to be honest, if you're a batsman, it's a little bit easier facing the 130s than somebody is around your ear. The conditions, playing conditions have changed. In those old days, you can bowl as many bounces as you want. I think Alan bowled me 5 in a row one day. And he didn't hit me because I was standing at square leg. But you know, they could do that. They could do that. Today, limited. You're not allowed to. And that's changed the game, because now the batter knows it's more or less there. I'm not on the back foot hoping it's not here. And that's changed the game massively. And they've just made changes now to the laws of the game, if you've seen in the last week, where in one-day cricket there's going to be 2 new balls used up until the 32nd over, I think, and then you choose one to the end, which brings the bowlers back a little bit now, because the ball will swing a little bit more. They're trying to bring the bowlers back into the game a bit, because the moment you might as well put bowling machines up there, trust me. The IPL, in fact, I spent a year with the Kings 11 in the IPL. That's some more stories to tell one day. I was with Pretty Zinter's side. And in some ways, the IPL for me, like, it's just too much. There's 6 every ball. Like, it's just the same, you know. But it's all razzmatazz. The 14-year-old, trust me, he's not 14 that played this. It's impossible. And that's what it's about, marketing. It's a marketing event. That's how the owners get their money back. And that's a different role. Pretty Zinta, let me tell you about that. I was involved with him 1 season across there and 1 year in South Africa. I remember they had it here 1 year in about 2007, 8. And all she did when she got off the plane, she heard I was South African, and she just said, diamonds, diamonds. Where do I get diamonds? And on our schedule was Kimberley. We played games there. So I said, wait for Kimberley, wait, I've got a connection there. And the president of the Griqualand West Association at the time worked for De Beers. So I phoned him ahead, I said, I've got this lady, she's got more than enough, where can we get diamonds? He said, you come into our vault. So we got there and flew in on a small plane, we were all together, security, all the rest. And he picked us up, we went to De Beers in Kimberley. And these are their life experiences again. We went into this vault down there next to the big hole somewhere, and they literally just brought out diamonds like I've never seen in my life. And they were for specialists overseas use and all the rest. And it just showed me, highlighted to me again, the IPL life. It's just a different world. She bought a yellow diamond there, which was, I don't want to be a fisherman, and say how big it was, but it was big. And she paid immediately. She called her bodyguard across, and he put out the credit card, and I saw them put in $250,000. That's what she paid for that. And she put it in a little thing, gave it to the De Beers guys, and when we flew out the next day, the security were there, came to a little plane with us. It's just a different world. In India, I booked into my hotel, there's a knock on the door, and there was a tailor speaker there, and he couldn't speak English, he just wanted to measure me. So he measured me and everything, and within 2 hours I had a brand new Armani suit sitting in my cupboard for the function that night. They just live in a different world. The function didn't happen, by the way, it's still in my cupboard at home. It does not fit. I need the tailor again.
Been to North for lunch.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's the world you live in there. One of the other side, RCB, who was owned by the guy who owned the racing team as well, I've forgotten his name now. They won 5 games in a row in that series. So the whole team got a brand new iPhone and an iPad. Yes, they were chuffed. They were in the bus with their new kit. They lost their next 3. He asked for them back. Different world. Different world. Anything else or done? Yes.
Drugs in schoolboy sports.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in that field and the influence that it has?
So, in our day, creatine was the big thing. And we didn't even know what it did. But we try and educate our boys as best as possible. I don't think anyone's taking anything at the moment in our space that I see. But you probably, in certain rugby schools, I would think there's probably some sort of enhancer, whatever that is. Yeah, probably great. It's not working the way they play.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, don't go there. But yeah, so there's definitely use, I think. There are testings that happen in our own space as well. We have testings that happen, and it's good. And the boys must know that. At the top level in cricket, we had once a month guys coming to do lectures and tell us about it. We probably could get better at that. But I think our guys are quite aware of what is allowed, not allowed, and they do get tested every now and again. Yeah, as a pro, they arrive at your front door at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're given a little bottle and you do your thing. Ask KG. He's gone through a tough time recently, and I think he's done brilliantly to say he admitted it. If it was tried to push under the cover, I think it would have been terrible. But I'm not condoning it at all. He's made a mistake, but he must move on from it. And I will say, in that space, it's so prevalent because the IPL, you are literally at parties every night. You are with high-level actors, actresses, big businessmen, and it's rife in that industry. And as a sportsman, you can get caught up so very easily. You've got to be very careful. There's guys in my line side that tested positive for dietary stuff because our trainers at the time were saying, you've got to lose weight, you're not going to train. And they took some of those diuretic type things. which are illegal. I can say who they were because it was in the media. A guy called Vaughan van Jaarsveld and Robbie Freiling at the time. And they didn't even realize that there was the wrong stuff in there, but they took it. So there's there's a booklet that thick, Craig will know, of what you can and can't do. So the best thing is just not to take, to be honest. And we had a doctor at the Lions, was John Patricius, and he wouldn't let you have some of these powders that came because you didn't know which rubber conveyor belt it came off because the one before might have had the wrong stuff and they haven't cleaned it properly. So you've got to be so careful as to what you put in your mouth. But at school, it's prevalent probably in some spaces, rugby I would think. I think we manage it as well as we can, and there's a lot of tests that do happen from time to time, yeah. So yeah.
Thanks very much.
Happy.
Yeah, it's been really insightful. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
James, thanks for participating. It's been really cool seeing everyone here today. Please join us at the next First Thursdays. It's more just to sit around, kind of have a chat internally, not really a really good function. So we'll get the comms out on that. If you're not on the WhatsApp community, I know on Saturday there's going to be QR codes. Otherwise, ask someone who is, and it's pretty easy to jump on. I think we're sitting at over 250 guys on the community now, so it's brilliantly well supported. Excellent.
Thanks everyone.
everyone.